Okay, time to call the December board meeting of the Tips Community School Corporation Board of Trustees to order. And if you would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is comments from the community, and we didn't have anyone register to speak. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda items, which include the approval of tonight's agenda, the work session minutes from November the 8th, public hearing of November the 8th, and the regular meeting of November the 8th, approval of claims for payroll November the 10th, payroll November the 25th, and payroll December the 9th, and accounts payable for December the 13th, 2022. And also the approval of the personnel report, which I will read after we pass this consent agenda items. Need a motion in a second.
I move to approve the consent agenda for this evening.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. The personnel report for December is extension of bereavement leave for Jessica Higginbotham, a teacher at Tipton Elementary School, resignation of Kathy Maddox, cafeteria at Tipton Elementary and Middle School, Shannon Trent, recess assistant, Tina Stroop, cafeteria, elementary and middle school, Michael Newton, third shift custodian at the high school, and recommendation of Angela McMillan, second shift custodian at the elementary school, Susan Faulkner, special education bus aide, Casey McCool, cafeteria at elementary and middle school, Pamela Portoff, recess assistant at the elementary school, Rachel Dane, recess assistant at the elementary school, and transfers of Scotland Moore, third shift custodian from the high school to the elementary school, and Mike Newton, third shift custodian from the elementary school to the high school. ECA staff recommendation is Danielle Adams for junior class sponsor. Moving on with tonight's agenda, we're ready for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Gary. Just wanted to run through a couple of things here, and this is going to actually be a little long, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time. Oh, come on here. You guys know I play this game every time. There we go. Just want to give you a report on our recycling program. As of today, we have recycled about 2 tons of paper, which is pretty darn awesome. That's 34 trees. We'll save 14,000 gallons of water. You can read the rest of that. But anyway, it's a super positive thing that we're doing, and love to watch the kids as they're working to get everything collected. And again, we just have so many people on board, and it's just really great to see. And special thanks to Kim Warner. She's really spearheading all of it and doing a terrific job. Do you hear what I hear? Hey, installation of the PA system in the middle school is in process. So we're very excited about that. We've been waiting on parts, and you guys all know the story of that. So that started last week. Hopefully we'll have that up and ready to go here shortly. I'm not exactly sure what the timeline is on that, but I know they're here working every day on it. We also had building level surveys. We administrators asked their buildings to give kind of a mid-year feedback on surveys and their leadership and their information. So we were really pleased with how everything worked out with that. They were in all 3 buildings. We had really solid participation. I know in the elementary we had like 47 responders. So again, really good responses. And what they're doing with that information is they're meeting with their leadership teams, and they're actually looking at all of that data and then kind of working on some plans on how to do some things better and how to, make some changes that, everybody feels positive about. And so I really feel like definitely a great opportunity to get some feedback as a leader. And so I'm thrilled that all 3 buildings are doing that. Construction updates. A lot has changed in a month. So tennis courts, sidewalk installation is still continuing. That will continue for the next few weeks. Parking lot, we will actually have access to the parking lot on Tuesday. So we probably will allow students to park in that parking lot on Tuesday. Again, I'm always a little afraid to say, definite days, but anyway, it sounds like Tuesday is going to be the day. So anyway, we're going to allow them to be able to park there the last 2 days before break. And so anyway, that's moved really well, and really appreciative of E&B and R.L. Turner for helping us get all of that moving forward so quickly. We do have temporary lines there, and also the lighting is up and going, so it looks different. Science and robotics classroom. Casework is being installed right now. I think it is actually installed in all of the rooms now. I walked through earlier today. The dirty lab, again, in the robotics, we have a clean lab and we have a dirty lab. So the clean lab will have the 3D printers and all the things that don't like dust, and the dirty lab will have things that create dust. So it will be enclosed, and it's the whole area just looks really nice. So very pleased with that, and so that's moving along very well. The TES TMS Media Center, got word today that we will be in those spaces when we return from school in January. And the STEM lab flooring is installed. Casework is going to begin tomorrow, and that's probably going to be a pretty big task, but that's, again, getting us closer to access. We are actually in a good portion of the cafeteria, and so that started yesterday, and the kids were excited to be in there. It was kind of like the first day of school all over again, especially for our kindergarten and first grade friends. But it was good fun, and I think they were happy to be in that space. The greenhouse, we're just still finishing up some punch list items. Again, this seems like we're just literally 1 yard away from a touchdown. So we just really like to cross that line. Anyway, just ready to get all that done. But anyway, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, all those punch list items will be taken care of, and we're making some progress on some signage and everything. So things are going very well there. The DOE dashboard, and I'm going to do a little bit of a switcheroo. Be patient with me for a second. Here to my computer. Today, the IDOE released the new dashboard system. The dashboard system is an accountability dashboard. It's been in process for a very, very long time. They call this the first iteration. There are issues with this. There are some things that aren't working, but they were under some pressure to get it out, so it's out. So anyway, it does kind of give us a snapshot. It gives us some idea of how our schools are, are compared to state, and so again, it's supposed to be designed to be fairly simple to read, and again, having some information that they feel will be beneficial as we're moving forward. So you'll notice that there are red arrows, there are green arrows, and there are arrows that are nothing. Again, it's black, I guess. Are they black? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, this really kind of gives us an idea of how we are moving as a district. Now, The red doesn't mean that we are like below state average or whatever. It just means that we are trending down right now. The green means that we are trending up right now. So it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with comparisons or anything like that. It's just that's where we are from where the benchmark was. So this is basically just that information in a quick and dirty dashboard kind of look. So as we drill down it more into this, and actually I'm not going to go through it, but there is building specific information. So one of the things that you will notice here is student attendance, and this is not a normal attendance rate. The state is looking at the number of students who have missed 10 or more days. And then they take that number and divide it by the school population, and then we get a score from that. You'll notice that we had 78.8 and we have dropped to 36.4. Honestly, this really isn't accurate data, I'll be very honest. It comes from the fact that when we moved over to Power School, we were coding some things differently. And so we are working to solve that issue. But in reality, we are probably close to where we were in 2021. But due to our changeover to Power School, the issue is we can't go back and fix that because it is real-time data, and they're pulling that data every night. And so we can't go back and say, oh, wait, that's not right. Let's go back and fix that because it's already been pulled. They would think that we were trying to do something crazy. So what we're doing, there's a couple of things we're looking at. First of all, we do have an attendance problem. We fully admit that. And we do have a percentage of students that are missing a considerable amount of days. We are addressing that, and I know that many of our families are aware that we've been addressing that, and we've had real conversations with folks about absences. And it doesn't matter whether an absence is excused or whether an absence is unexcused. If it's 10 days, it's going to be part of this calculation. So we're really trying to focus in on getting kids to school as much as possible, trying to get as many students to that 94% attendance rate as possible. We had a meeting today with probation and talking about some ideas that we can work on together to try to help with this attendance issue. The other thing is we purchased some software today, which is part of Power School, which will help us track the attendance like this. It's just kind of a complicated way to determine attendance. You just can't go, hey, what's our attendance rate? Because our attendance rate will say we're at 94, 95%. But the way the state is calculating it using this formula, it just makes it look a little bit different. So we know there's an issue with attendance. We don't think it's that issue, but that's where we are. And so we'll be able to give you reports now that we have that software on where we are, even on a daily basis as far as knowing where we are on that state calculation. So kindergarten readiness is coming soon. And then pre-K to grade 2 literacy is coming soon. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I'm sure somebody does. As you take a look here, this is our 3rd grade iRead results. And again, not surprising, we have moved down, and that's really more about pandemic than anything else. And that's also why we've identified that as a goal that we want to see improvement. And we really believe that we will have that improvement. There is a red arrow because it is down from what it was in 2021. As far as 6th grade math growth, and again, this is trending upward, which we're happy about, and we were very happy with our 6th grade math results last year. But the state is looking at that 3rd grade reading and 6th grade math growth as the two touch points they want to look at as kids are moving through school. So again, we feel like that we are making positive changes with sixth grade, and we feel like that that's moving in the right direction. So again, that is one of the other matrix that they use to determine that. And again, all of the breakout groups, again, this would be our free and reduced lunch. This would be obviously our breakout group. And so again, I mean, we're mostly white. The other populations are less than 30, so they won't be counted in this since it's less than 30 students. So advanced coursework prior to ninth grade. And once again, this is another touch point that the state is looking at. We are down just a little bit from the year before. And again, this is eighth grade students that are taking high school credit. So we now offer it where every eighth grade student takes preparing for college and careers. We expect to see that number jump mostly because of that. And of course, we still have algebra. So, the numbers for algebra have struggled a little bit over the last couple of years. Again, really more due to the pandemic than anything else, because math was hit harder than any other subject. And so that number is not surprising when we look at that moving down just a little bit, because we just did not have as many students in algebra in eighth grade as we have in the past. But I do believe that this number will move significantly next year with all the students we have in preparing for college and careers. Graduation pathway completion. So again, this is a positive trend. Down just a little bit for white students, but economic disadvantaged students, we are up just a little bit. So again, those are positives that we want to look at. And so again, once again, some positive information that we're looking at from the high school. SAT performance, we are a little bit below state average on SAT performance, and we've had that discussion earlier. This is the benchmark year for that. So we'll just kind of see what the future brings. We also have our freshmen and our sophomores taking the PSAT so that they can, they're more accustomed to what that test looks like. So again, we do believe that we will see some increase in that area in the future. So college and career coursework, we're in pretty good shape there in comparison, to the state. And again, the number of students that we have that are within our breakout groups that are moving forward, again, all positive. And really that's just due to the fact that we offer a lot of dual credit. We offer a lot of building trades, a lot of automotive, a lot of trades in our school, which is a little unusual for the school our size. But anyway, that's going to continue to move in the right direction. And as well as our ag classes, where that's really kind of the majority of where our dual credit is coming from. FAFSA completion. One of the goals the state has is 100% of the students completing the FAFSA. So this is the benchmark year. And again, it's a very lofty goal. There's a lot of things that we're out of control of with parents completing the FAFSA. But I feel like at this point, our counselors are doing a great job getting kids in to complete that. And I feel like that's moving forward. Diploma strength. This is also another thing that we're looking at. Diploma strength kind of has a dip a little bit here, and then we come back up here. This is due to the number, what affects our diploma strength is the number of students that we have that graduate with a general diploma. And so Core 40 should be the default diploma for all of our students. And so one of the things that we are really looking at in the high school is really helping kids get to that Core 40 diploma and to maintain that core 40 as long as possible. And so we want kids to graduate. And oftentimes when it comes down to, is a kid going to graduate with a core 40 or are they going to graduate with a general diploma? And there's a possibility they won't graduate. We want them to graduate. So there is an impact there that we are aware of. But again, it's one thing that we're looking at and one thing that we have a plan moving forward. The other part of that would be many of our TAA students graduate with a general diploma. And so we're trying to move a few of them into that core 40 range, which again will help us overall with the strength of our diploma. I have absolutely no idea how the state gets this information, but they do. And so this is employment and enrollment. So they're looking at the students that are employed or enrolled 1 year after graduation. So they're either enrolled in a university or they're working. Again, I'm not sure how they get that information, but there it is. Again, part of what this dashboard is to really look beyond, what's happening in school and seeing how kids are doing out in the academic field and workforce. Sustained employment, again, I'm not exactly sure how this information comes. I don't know where they get this, but anyway, so again, you're looking at, how long, people are staying employed, staying in university, different things like that. Median income, that's obvious. That's just going to come from economic data. So that's another component that they use within this. And then just in general, iLearn performance. And you can see with math growth and with ELA growth, really K through 8, we are moving forward. Our kids are growing. We have not reached the levels of proficiency yet that we want to get to. So again, we've had a lot of conversation about this. This is what we've been discussing with our school improvement plans. And but I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity. It just was released today, so I wanted to make sure that you guys had an opportunity to hear this information and ask any questions that I may or may not be able to answer. So,
Are the results from the 3rd, 6th, and the advanced 8th grade numbers, are those pulled only from the year-end testing, or is that pulled through the incremental testing, like, for example, it's happening right now within our
no,
schools?
it's just going to come from iLearn.
iLearn,
Yeah.
only the year-end
Yeah.
test.
And again, the way this information is, we have this system now that pulls this information out of our Power School. So really, anything that we put in that Power School is going to have an impact on what this looks like. So it's very important that we have accurate information in Power School.
What does the state use this information for?
I don't know. I mean,
Obviously, we want to watch the trends and
yeah.
growth, but what are they using?
Well, it's a little ambiguous. I mean, I'll be really honest. Some people would like to see this versus the A to F system. Right now, it's really kind of up to the state board what they want to do with it. This has been in the works for several years. It probably was in the works when you were at IDOE, I'm assuming.
They had just started.
And so,
It doesn't affecting funding or
no. At this point, I would say, again, I think everybody, they're rolling this out and they know that some of this data looks bad, basically coming out of the pandemic, but they also, I mean, again, with allowing us to have kind of that reset for iLearn, it does allow us to have a different baseline as we move forward. So again, I think that that's going to be helpful. The attendance issue, again, we have a problem. We're not going to deny that. We don't have a problem that is that bad, but we do have a problem. So we will be monitoring that closely, and we'll share that with you as progress moves on. So, anyway, anything else? Okay. I know this is riveting. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. I promise to be fast here. Okay, so that's the dashboard. Again, that's just some general information. That's how they get the attendance rate. Again, something we're working on. It'll get better in the future. Indiana Learns Grant is the legislature passed this Indiana Learns Grant last year. It's a matching grant where each corporation would have to pay $500, and the state would provide the other $500. We have 24 students that are eligible, and this is basically coming out of iLearn data. It's a tutoring service that's virtual. So at this point, I think we've had people in our lives. So I am of the opinion that we don't need to participate in this. However, I did want to make sure you are all aware that it is available. The state has, I think, 50,000 seats or something like that, and they've only got 2,000 filled. So the state is really trying to push districts to jump on this. And again, I'm not saying that it can't be good, but again, if it were a tutoring situation with a human, I guess I would feel a little bit different than it just being virtual. And that's just my opinion on that.
What makes a student eligible?
A combination of things. iLearn scores, free and reduced lunch rate. There's a couple of things that will trigger their eligibility. We did look at all 24 kids that they've listed. They are all in an intervention in the elementary at this time. And so we feel like what we are doing internally is meeting their needs. Again, we can talk about this a little bit more because we do have some time before we would have to make a decision. But I just kind of wanted to bring that out. That is a live link. You guys are welcome to go look at the program and see what you think about that. And I mean, it's something that we can consider if we feel like it's worth it. We do have our TAG disbursement. So we received our TAG grant the 1st of December for $53,275. That's basically about $34.50 per student. So teachers that were rated highly effective get $708.52. Effective, $566.76. Essentially, the highly effective teachers, according to state statute, need to get 25% more than the effective teachers. The criteria, you have to be rated effective or highly effective with your summative rating. You need to have taught for TCSE through 21 and 22, and you also need to be employed by TCSE as of December 1st. They give us a very short timeline to disperse this money, 20 days, and then we have to submit a report saying that we've zeroed out that account, and then our checks will go out on Friday, which is kind of a nice little Christmas bonus for our teachers. Speaking of Christmas, I had the opportunity to hear some outstanding music performances over the past week or two. And again, just really thrilled with the quality of teachers we have and our talented students. And we're really blessed to have what we have here at Tipton. Again, a small school with a lot of opportunities for kids. And the one thing that is amazing to me always is just, the giving that goes on. And again, we just know, how to do Christmas. We have a huge food collection going on in the elementary. Again, we have high school and middle school students that are, taking on families who are in need. Again, it's just pretty amazing to see what this community does and what our students are doing, and we should all be very proud of that. And the one thing I really love this year is just seeing the celebrating that's going on in the buildings. Our buildings are, if you go in the middle school and see their incredible door decorations, they're something else. And of course, our elementary, they're all Christmased up, and kids are excited, and they are beginning to have visions of sugar plums. And even the high school, is doing some really nice things. The hallways are decorated. Things look great. So again, it's super nice to be at Tipton and to get to see this great stuff happening. A real big shout out to our piano class. It's the first time we've offered a piano class, and they had their recital this last week. There are 14 students in the class, and here's a real quick picture of them. And nothing makes a music guy happier than seeing people surrounding a baby grand piano. And so anyway, just really thrilled that this is a class that we can offer. And we have 14 keyboards and 14 students, so we could have had 24 probably. But anyway, so it's really nice to be able to teach the kids piano at a later age and be able to use that. Congratulations to Abby Phillips. You didn't know you were going to be talked about, did you? And she is the recipient of the Lilly Endowment Community Scholarship. She plans to go to Butler, and she's going to come back to Tipton and be our SLP, right? Okay, awesome, because we need that. And so I'm all about Butler. I have a son in Butler, and there are other Butler people here. So anyway, congratulations and well done, well-deserved honor. Okay, that's it for me.
Is
For
that
now.
piano class, is that all levels? They'll teach someone who doesn't have any knowledge?
Yeah. I mean, really right now, it's, that's really what they've got. They've got, kids that are just learning.
Okay.
And it's, and one of the things that's nice about it is it does count as a fine arts credit towards academic honors or technical honors. So again, just provides another avenue for kids to get that credit. So, yeah.
Move up at their own pace. Like
Yep.
Jennifer and I kids
Mhm.
had lessons previously, so our kids are in the next level. Our kids are moving up. So kids that come into the class that never raised a piano before, they're still learning the basics and the theory and things like that. So which is really good. I'm just so thankful that she's teaching it. It just gives those kids the opportunity that never got the chance to take piano lessons and wanted to learn how to play. They all played so well. We sat and watched all of them, and I was so proud of all of them. They did really well.
Yeah.
They all played a Christmas song that they chose to play, and they did really good.
Yeah, I think it's great. I didn't even know they were doing it,
Well,
and so,
we
it,
kinda didn't until- Really good.
yeah, I would have loved to have heard them. I think that's just great. So yeah, awesome. Okay, that's neat. Not for me, I think.
All right, next item on the agenda is the department reports. And you've had an opportunity to look over those. Director of Student Achievement and Learning, Mr. Jaworski. Director of Student Services and Transportation, Mr. Clark. Director of Food Service, Mr. Prohl. And Director of Technology, Stephen Dingrich. Mr. Dingrich. Anybody have any questions or comments on those? Okay. We'll move along to the monthly financial report.
Okay, let me put my agenda up here. Okay. So for the month of November, we had revenue of approximately $973,000 with expenditures of 1.217, and that's really due mostly to last month's transfer that we made. So we're not in that serious shape, but that's leaving a cash balance of around $500,000 in the education fund. This is compared to $24,000 that we had in November of 21. Operation expenditures were $349,000, cash balance of $239,000, That's compared to 889.31 in 21. We did get our tax draw, so things look a lot better there. And again, that's just one of those accounts that's going to start out high and just keep getting lower and lower and lower because there's not something that constantly generates revenue. Debt service has cash balance of 1.3 million, and then the ending cash balance in a rainy day is 2.345 million. Year-to-date interest totals are $116,000, and we have very much benefited from increased interest rates. And Brooke is going to come up and talk about how we're going to even benefit more here in a little bit. And so that's pretty much the financial report.
Does that interest total go back into operations?
I'll just let Brooke come up and talk about it. Yep.
She's up next.
So as you know, Dr. Glaze has talked the last month or two about investing with Trust Indiana. So we were also in the process of having our annual meeting with First Farmers representatives and give me a chance to meet them as well. So in that, we started negotiations with our interest rate and went back and forth a time or two, and they have agreed to match the Trust Indiana rate plus add 3 basis points. So this will be an agreement that will be in effect through November 1st of 2024. And additionally, we have a sweep account with them that basically holds $1.5 million in the interest-free account to pay our bills. And so money moves back and forth daily. They've monitored that and believe that we can reduce that down to $750,000. So that would put another $750,000 in the interest account that we can accrue interest on. So I'll be working with Rachel Davis to kind of monitor that weekly, because the interest is subject to change weekly based on the 7-day yield of the previous Monday plus 3 basis points. So I'll work out an arrangement so I could make sure that we're on point with that. So it's just really great to keep that partnership going, and I appreciated working with them. And if you have any questions, as far as the interest, that can go in education or operations. So I think there were a couple of months later this year that operations fund really needed that revenue so as not to take any more from the education fund in a transfer. So this last month for November, we did put that in education.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's not always, this is what we do every time. It just,
Right.
it's the cash
Yep.
flow.
Based on need, they permit it to go in either fund. So
Was that interest generated, did our money ever go to Trust Indiana? Or I know that we had approved that, and I just was curious when if
Right.
that happened or if it always stayed.
it did not happen. I was in discussions with Cindy Barger from Trust Indiana to get the agreements in place. And literally the day that I was getting ready to sign the agreement and move money, probably the next day, we were able to come to an arrangement with First Farmers. So I think we were really lucky to land that. So
That was great, and it's good that we can stay local, and
Sure.
We really appreciate First Farmers. Yeah.
I don't know. It's been 4 or 5 at least. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, looking
Very
at
good partner.
November, it looks like the interest rate was around 3.29, and I did a quick check before I came over, and Trust Indiana so far in the month of December is around 3.9.
Okay.
So we'll be able to benefit from that.
And again, with all the construction funds we have right now,
Sure.
we're able to generate quite a bit. So it's good. And
Thank
thank
you.
you, Brooke. She
You're
worked really hard
welcome.
on
Thank
that.
you.
So thank you.
very much.
Next item on tonight's agenda is student engagement survey results with Mr. Jaworski.
Soon as it recognizes my computer. No. See, I have a back door way of getting in, so All right, here we go. Oh, it happens every time. There we go.
Never gets old, does it?
Apparently not. Alrighty, let me get this set up. All right, so it is the holiday season. It is also apparently the season for data. As Dr. Liz has already walked us through a good amount of that. So this is going to be a little data intensive. So I'm going to try my best to summarize this and simplify it as much as possible. So as you'll remember, this past summer, as part of the 22-23 digital learning grant that we were awarded, as a district, we're committed to building teacher capacity and learning that focus on quality blended and online learning instructional practices. In doing so, we use this grant money to accomplish two separate goals. The first one is to bring in a field expert to support our staff in increasing student engagement through blended learning and online instructional practices. The second piece of that goal is to incentivize staff to participate in these learning opportunities and encourage implementation of said instructional practices. We've partnered with Solution Tree in collaboration with Dr. Alexander McNeese. Through our first two district-wide professional development days, Dr. McNeese has shared his experiences, instructional strategies, and guidance to not only identify where we are as a school and as a district with student engagement, but also what aspects to focus on to increase student engagement overall. That is where this survey originated from. We wanted to establish a baseline of where students currently view their engagement, because as we know, perception is reality. So again, this survey is intended to accomplish three separate things. Ultimately, this data is and will continue to be used to guide teachers and administrators in regards to increasing a level of student engagement in all of our classes, which we've determined as a prerequisite for effective instruction, right? If students are not engaged in the lesson, students are not going to, instruction will not be as effective. So again, the purpose of this is, again, collect that baseline data on student engagement, monitor trends of specific demographics, and then inform decision-making of our district's instructional focus. So again, just a little bit of the science, so to speak, behind this. Dr. McNeese shared with us what drives student engagement behavior at both the theoretical level and application level. So not to get too technical with you, but at theoretical level, engagement is broken down into two separate categories: cognitive and affective, right? Cognitive engagement at the application level is all about student autonomy and competence. So for example, when students are confident in the content that they're learning and are given a choice in what they are doing, they tend to be more engaged. Effective engagement at the application level is all about relevance and student-teacher relationships. So for example, when students have a respect and appreciation for who's teaching the content to them and recognize the impact of that content has on them personally, again, they are more engaged. Again, makes sense. I'm sure all of our teachers could attest to that. With these elements in mind, the survey we administered targeted students in specific areas. The idea being we can get measurable, actionable data on how our students are engaged and more specifically, where students are not as engaged. So I'm going to throw a bunch of graphs at you. Like I said, there's a lot of numbers. All this is from the results we got, and Dr. McNeese actually helped put some of this data together because even for me, this was a lot. So again, this graph particularly illustrates the data relating total student engagement to student achievement. So again, as self-reported letter grades. You'll note real quick here that it's a little bit backwards from what traditionally is displayed. Girls are represented by blue bars and boys are represented by red bars. So from this data, we can conclude that the more engaged a student is, the higher they achieve. So when you look on the left-hand side, the bars on the left-hand side there demonstrate self-reported grades of, hey, I get really high grades. I get all A's. Again, you can see the scale goes all the way up to 4 for total engagement. So the students who are getting all A's are reporting that they are very engaged in their class. Students who are doing receiving lower grades or earning lower grades tend to acknowledge that they are much less engaged in their classes. So again, there's absolutely a correlation between student engagement and achievement. This is a really fun graph. This graph illustrates the relationship between effective engagement and cognitive engagement, kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier. So students in that first quadrant, the top right, are highly engaged, right? Competence, autonomy, relatedness, relevance. Those kids are very engaged in their classes, and they tend to be high achievers. Students in the second quadrant, which is top left, are engaged effectively, but not cognitively. These are students who respect the teachers in class or draw relevance with the content, but don't feel nearly as competent or feel a sense of any autonomy in that class. Students in the third quadrant, bottom left, are disengaged both cognitively and effectively. And then finally, the students in the bottom right are engaged cognitively, but don't really feel any real connection to the class and content as a whole. What this graph really demonstrates is that there's a strong correlation between effective and cognitive engagement. Put simply, the more engaged students are through competency and autonomy, the more likely they are to be engaged through relevance and relationship. So again, there's a correlation between those two things. Really difficult to see this one, so I really do apologize. That's about as good as we can make this. There is a color coding to it. If you were interested in seeing a much more detailed picture of this, I'd be more than happy to share it with you. But this is essentially, it's the exact same graph as the last slide, but this time we've included the self-reported grades with those students. Our natural hypothesis would be that the more engaged a student is in class, the higher the grade that student would earn. This data absolutely reinforces that idea very clearly. The majority of students in quadrant 1 are largely earning grades A and B, while the majority in quadrant 3 are largely earning C's or less. So big picture, big takeaway from this particular graph. This data is not exactly shocking or breaking news. What's significant is that this data follows our hypothesis, our expectations for how engagement impacts achievement. However, this data alone will not lead to any kind of real change, but it does provide us some confidence when we say that we need to increase student achievement we need to increase student engagement to increase student achievement. Again, pretty data intensive, and I'm sure it is pretty difficult to read this particular one. So I'm going to try my best to describe this verbally here. So a lot of numbers in the data, not a lot of fun to read or look at. As a district instructional leadership team made up of building administrators, district admin, and instructional coaches, we've put an emphasis on 3 different elements of effective instruction. Number 1 is clear learning outcomes. That's related to student autonomy. That's measured in, you'll see up there, questions 7 and 14. Those are the blue ones. Checks for understanding is another instructional effective element of instruction. Again, that's related to student competency. That's measured in questions 3 and 4. That's in red. And then authentic, engaging learning experiences. That's more of your collaborative, cooperative learning opportunities. This is measured in questions 4 and 9. That's your green categories. So a score of 5 is a high score. A score of 1 is a low score. And I'll kind of walk through each of these as briefly and as simply as I can. If you look at the clear learning outcomes, that's the first thing we look at when you're looking for effective instruction is it obvious to everybody in the room what it is that you're supposed to be learning? As far as students knowing what the learning goals in their class, this is, again, one of the strongest areas we have as a district. However, it's still interesting to note that a sense of clarity drops from one building to the next. This could lead us to conversations about strategies for setting clear learning expectations for our students and their learning. Question 14 on the far right speaks to the tools we have to support students' understanding of the goals and expectations for each lesson. Once again, that's decreasing from one building to the next. So again, you have that higher level score in elementary, a little bit lower in the middle school, a little bit lower in the high school. Again, clear learning outcomes are absolutely essential part of instruction, both for students and for teachers. While we have some success in those younger grades, the data indicates that we should really look for ways to better communicate our expectations for students as they progress year in and year out. The next thing we want to look at is checks for understanding. That's, again, related to student competency. That's in the red columns there. These, as you can tell, we're starting to see a trend here. Both categories decrease in scores as you work your way through the elementary to the high school. Despite that, it's really encouraging to see that in question 4 here, our students, for the most part, are demonstrating perseverance when they make a mistake. Again, this is something that we as educators can really work with. If a student is motivated to improve where they're at, then really we just need to work on building the system to help support that work ethic. So again, some positive data from that as well. Finally, this last one is about authentic learning experiences. Again, that collaborative, cooperative learning experience that's in those green columns. This had our lowest scores and gives us an area to really focus on over the next semester. So question 5 indicates that overall students typically work and learn with each other. Right? right? Slightly more so in the younger grade levels than in the older grade levels. Question 9 is really eye-opening to me. It's probably the one that stood out the most. Not only is it our lowest scoring survey question, and this question is, quote, I don't raise my hand or participate in discussion because I'm afraid to seem foolish. Again, I think that's something we all can somewhat relate to. But if you compare girls to boys, both at the district and individual building levels, you can see that girls, which are in red here, I've highlighted, are much more reluctant to participate than boys, who are obviously in blue. Again, this gives our teachers a little bit of a focus in their classes. It's our job as educators to create a safe learning environment for all students. That safety goes beyond just physical safety, right? That students need to know that they're free to make mistakes without any kind of threat of ridicule from other students or from staff. This brings up a really important question for all of us. Do we promote a safe, collaborative, nurturing learning environment for all of our students? One that encourages participation and opportunities to make mistakes and learn to grow from those mistakes. Our data shows that it's not quite yet the case, especially for our young ladies in our middle and high school. But again, this is something that hard data that points us in the direction of this is something that we need to focus on as it relates to engagement. Last graph, I promise. This is just a bonus piece of information that Dr. McNeish shared with us related to the level of engagement broken down by different application levels. So what really stands out here, and again, I know it's really difficult to read on this small graph, is is how the relatedness or relationships with the teacher outpaced the other areas of engagement with our students. Essentially, the more connected our students are with their students, the relationships they build is a key piece to the engagement. That is very clear. That's what that green bar is all about. Is it stands out in each of those grade levels a little bit higher than most, except for maybe at the very end where when you get to our sophomores, juniors, and seniors, it becomes more about their ability to control what it is that they're learning. Their autonomy is more of a motivating factor for them, more of a way for them to engage our students at the high school than what you see in 3rd through 8th grade, where it's a lot more reliant on their relationship with their teachers. So again, that's more information for us to kind of build on. So kind of data-driven decisions. What are we doing with this? That's something I'm always adamant that we have discussion about. It's not about just collecting data and having meetings about it. It's also about what we're going to do about that data. So Dr. McNeish has already spoken to our district instructional leadership team about what our next steps need to be. And those steps include communicating this data to our staff and identifying an area to focus our interventions on, implementing strategies to improve those targeted areas of need, and then collecting data on the same questions later in the year. We're shooting for April there to measure the effectiveness of the efforts that we're putting in this semester. So again, this is the same process that our collaborative teachers teams follow in their professional learning communities. We're simply applying this to a larger scale, all of which is an effort to, again, find ways to continuously improve for our students. I appreciate your patience with that presentation. Again, it's a lot of information, a lot of data. Do you have any questions for me at this time? Because it was a lot.
I think I missed at the beginning. You said all of this information is self-reported.
Yes, the grading is self-reported. So as part of the survey, the student would identify, I get mostly A's or I get mostly A's and B's, as that's just a way to kind of connect what the student's engagement is to roughly their level of achievement.
So then how is the data gathered? For example, how willing they were to answer a question?
Oh, it's all part of the same survey.
Same survey.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
grasp that. Okay, understood.
Anybody else have any questions?
You know how to get a hold of me if you do.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is old business, and we don't have any old business to contend with this evening. So on to new business. First item is consideration to approve the Spectator Code of Conduct and pregame announcement. At last month's work session and presentation and discussion about Tipton Community School Corporation Spectator Code of Conduct and pregame announcement was facilitated by Mr. Ayers, our school safety specialist. Both Tipton Community School Corporation Spectator Code of Conduct and pregame announcement are recommended from the Tipton Community School Corporation Board of School Safety Committee. These two documents will serve as communication to both Tipton community and visiting schools on behavior expectations at our events. The Tipton Community School Corporation Spectator Code of Conduct will be displayed at all events, and the pregame announcement will be read before the before the beginning of each athletic event. That policy is in your packet, and we discussed that last month and offered some suggestions. Those were implemented. So I need a motion and a second to approve that policy.
I move to approve the spectator code of conduct and pre-game.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you very much. Next is resolution to allow transfer between funds to pay off Greenhouse 2022 fund. In the spring of 2022, a Greenhouse fund was created. Currently, that fund has a negative balance. Last month, we approved an appropriation to cover expenses for the Greenhouse. The resolution before you allows us to transfer funds from the operations to the Greenhouse fund over the period of the next 6 months in monthly installments for cash flow purposes, with the goal of having a zero balance on or before June 30th, 2023. Transfers will be clearly identified in our monthly financials. Resolution to approve this transfer, which you had in your packet, is recommended for approval. Need a motion and a second to do that. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Next is approval of additional appropriation for Education and Operation Fund. Each December, the Board of Trustees is asked to approve additional appropriation for both education and operation funds in order to cover expenses through December 31st. This document increases education fund appropriation of $200,000 and operation fund appropriation of $500,000. Approval of this additional appropriation is recommended. Had that in your packet. Questions or comments? Need a motion and a second.
I move to approve the additional appropriation for the education and operation funds.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next is consideration to approve the transfer of funds to close out the 2022 budget. In order to close out the 2022 budget, all major budget accounts must not show a deficit. Inter and intra-fund transfers of appropriations allow schools to transfer surplus appropriations to accounts needing additional appropriation. It's recommended that the board approve the transfer of funds to close out the 2022 budget. A summary will be made available to the board at the January meeting. Need a motion and a second to approve that transfer of funds. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is residential TIF resolutions. In October, the City of Tifton Redevelopment Commission approved a residential TIF district resolutions for Buttonwood and the West Side residential developments. As part of the residential TIF process, the Tifton Community School Corporation Board of School Trustees must approve an accompanying resolution along with the City Planning Commission and the City Council for full approval of the RTIF district. The two resolutions, one for Buttonwood and one for West Side Residential, are attached in your board packet. Each one will need a separate vote, need a separate motion and a vote for that as well. So, do we have any questions or comments? No, we can take the motion first. We'll, separate motion for the first one is 2022 -7, I believe it is, for the West Side. Motion to approve and consider. The first one is West Side. Okay. Okay. Vote to deny the TIF district resolution for the West Side residential development area. Say all in favor, say aye, or all in favor, say no.
Do you want comments first, Gary?
Okay. Okay.
I would like to take some time to give a recap of the residential TIF resolutions that are before us tonight. The school board's consideration of residential tax increment financing began in May. Since May, our school board has spent considerable time in doing our due diligence to gain knowledge of TIF and how it may impact a school corporation. We reached out to many who are familiar and have experience with the topic. We've also consulted with our financial advisor and our board attorney, and have had the former president of Delphi Schools come to our meeting and speak to us. Additionally, we spoke with the former superintendent of Rush County Schools, economic development directors in other localities, and the community development regional educator for Purdue University Extension. TIF was also a topic of discussion at our annual school board conference in October. We've had many concerns, and we have not received all the information that we have requested. On October 3rd, excuse me, Reedy Financial emailed me stating, "We are still working on finalizing the impact statements for residential TIF, and I will make sure I share this with you when they are complete." On November 2nd, I emailed Reedy Financial and asked when the impact statements would be ready, and I have not received any further communication from them. Indiana law states that up to 15% of TIF revenues generated can be used for education programs by the school. The resolutions before us do not have that option in them. Residential TIF is still very new, and the schools that have adopted residential TIF that we have spoken to and researched are too early in the process to know whether it was beneficial or harmful to the school corporation. We just cannot know what the long-term effects are. It is concerning to me that the Buttonwood area does not pass the test outlined in the Indiana Code. On the Heffelmeyer property, it concerns me to place that amount of acreage into an economic development area that is not even for sale. Once the TIF clock begins and taxes are collected, it lasts for approximately 20 to 25 years. There is no way we could predict what our financial status may even be in 5 years. I am concerned about voting for a subject that obligates boards far into the future. This board's decision stands independently from the previous groups that have voted. We should not be concerned with the reasons individuals on any of the other boards did or did not vote to approve the residential TIF matter. We should only be concerned with how it may affect our school system. My understanding is that no board approved or denied their resolutions unanimously, which would indicate that the subject is controversial. The school board wants to work together with the county to help bring growth, not only to Tipton, but to our schools. If a residential TIF becomes necessary to bring growth, the board is more than willing to revisit a resolution, but only one that would benefit the school corporation as well. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, and the motion is to deny residential TIF 2022-7 for the West Side Residential Development Area. And so a yay vote would be to deny that. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next one is the residential TIF area resolution 2022-8, which is the Buttonwood development. Need a motion likewise.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So all in favor of the denying of the west or of the Buttonwood development area TIF, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next is other matters to come before the board. Does anyone have anything? All right. Next is schedule of events coming up. As we talked about a little bit earlier, on the 15th, the YO's Family Night Concert. Tipton Ambassador is also that same day. Final exams are the 19th through the 21st, and then winter break begins on the 22nd through January the 2nd, and students will return January the 3rd. Yeah. On the calendar. Okay. I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to thank all board members that I've had the pleasure of working with through the years, in the last couple of years and years before that. Some of them out in the audience. So I would appreciate their working with them and their friendship.
Thought we would take this opportunity to recognize our members that will be going off of the board again. The commitment to school board, man, it is in some ways a very thankless job, and it's a huge commitment. And we just appreciate their willingness to come here and work hard for students every single day, and we appreciate that. And again, it's hard to encapsulate all of this into one little event, but we do want to take this opportunity to thank them. So we'll start here, ladies first. So I'm going to start here with April, and she has served for 8 years. And okay, so each of the board members will get a clock that's and it has an engraving here for their years, and we also will take some pictures at the end. So anyway, we thank you for your. And next would be Chris McNew. Chris, we thank you. 4 years on the board. We appreciate what you've done, and thank you so much. Oh, thank you. And last but not least, we have Gary, who has served as the board president since I've been here, which I've greatly appreciated, and has spent 12 years on the board. Again, amazing. Thank you for all you've contributed and all the time and everything. We want to take some pictures after, so we'll do that.
Unless anybody has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you all.
Thank
you
you.
want to take a vote on that?